back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys! So I am here today to talk to you about some anticipated releases that I have for 2019. I've already done a couple of videos on this topic, so if you haven't seen them, do check out the link below where you can go and find out what books I was excited about for the first few months of the year. This video is going to be continuing on from mid-May into July, so let's just get started. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about each of these books and why I'm looking forward to them, and then in the comments I'd love you guys to tell me what you're looking forward to in this time period, and also if any of the ones I mention are going straight onto your anticipated releases lists. So the first book I want to talk to you guys about is a sequel, and in fact many of the ones in this video are sequels because it seems this time period is where all the sequels and continuations of series are coming out. I do have one that's new to me, but most of them are sequels, and this sequel is Children of Ruin, which is the sequel to Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I absolutely loved the first book in this series. I thought it was fantastic and really blew my mind with just how interesting and intricate Adrian was able to go with the different races, the different species, and how he made each one feel not only separate and unique and alien, but also in a way have a kind of kindred spirit with one another, and I just thought he did an excellent job with this. So I really enjoyed the first book. This second book is set about 1,000 years or so later, I think, than the first book, and it's once lots of colonies have started to pop up, and I believe it's set in a time where the Portids, who are some sort of new species, and their humans have sent out sort of exploratory ships, and these ships have discovered some radio waves that are giving off a strange like crisis signal, and I guess it goes from there. Honestly, I don't know if any of the characters from the previous book are going to be in this one, or if it's kind of a standalone in the same universe, or what this is going to be, but I'm definitely down for it because the first one was so good that I'm hopeful this one will also be really good. Fingers crossed. The next book I have to talk about is called Walking to Aldebaran, I believe, and this one is actually also by Adrian Tchaikovsky, so he's doing very well. He's releasing two quite close together, and I believe this follows a man called Gavin who is an astronaut, and he is a lost astronaut on an alien artifact, and we follow what happens with his journey. He was one of the few astronauts who was sent up to explore the Oort cloud, which is some sort of mysterious alien artifact, and he got lucky. He got in the draw to go up and do this with another team, but when he got there, disaster struck the team and he was the one who survived, with the rest of the team scattered and probably dead. So it sounds like it's going to be a good one. I do think Adrian Tchaikovsky does a great job with characterization, so I'm really hopeful that I'll like this a lot. The cover's quite cool and the concept sounds good, so it reminds me a little bit of The Martian in concept, but I'm intrigued to see what Tchaikovsky does differently. Next up is one that doesn't yet have a cover as far as I know, and that is The Ruthless, Peter Newman, and I loved The Deathless. I think you guys have seen me talking about it in like my favourites and honorary mentions and all of those sorts of videos because I really enjoyed it. It was a fantastic, really good fantasy read. Lots of cool elements, both in the magic and just in the concepts that he was dealing with, and I thought they were fantastic. So I really recommend that series, and this is the sequel, the follow-up to that book. Obviously I don't want to tell you too much about what happened in the first one, but suffice to say there's a lot of different characters. Each one of them is fantastic. We have an elderly female character who is one of the main characters, and she is fantastic, like so cool. She has an attitude and she has a lot of life to her, and she just really feels like a unique character, and he's done her so well. Alongside her we also have other characters who are ruling deathless, people who cannot necessarily be killed, because if they are killed in some form or other they should come back again, they should reincarnate into a new generation of their family. So there's magic like that. There's also these suits that they wear that allow them to kind of fly and defend against things in the wilds and the nasty bits and bobs of the world, and the common people kind of look up to these deathless as saviours, but also a little bit as tyrants. So it's a really interesting concept and I loved it, and I thought it was well written, definitely, so I'm super excited for book 2. Another one which is a sequel to Empire of Silence, which is by Christopher Rucchio, and this book is one I'm definitely keen to get to. The first book in this series, Empire of Silence, is actually a really fascinating kind of scientific sci-fi concept, which is very similar to Kingkiller, where it's a man who is called Hadrian Marlowe, and he's intelligent, he's witty, he's clever, but he's also regarded by many as a murderer and a hero. So he has quite the reputation, which has been built up over many years and many deeds, and he is sitting down with us and telling us the story of his life and how it got to the point where it currently is. So I find it absolutely fascinating. In the first book, it was a really, really heartfelt, emotional journey, and it was pretty cool as well because there's a lot of sci-fi elements. He moves planets and there's different cultures and civilizations on these planets. It's got a lot of really interesting elements, and I feel like the second book hopefully will continue that. So looking out for the book 2 when that comes out. Next up I have, I think it's book number 5 now in a series, and that is called Dark Age by P.S. Brown. This started off as a trilogy, the Red Rising trilogy, but then it was expanded out with new books, Iron Gold and this one, and I think there's going to be a third one after this as well. So this is set in the middle of what is probably going to be a very, very big war. The ending of the 4th book was very dramatic and climactic, with a lot of things going very wrong for our main character, and this is set in a time period where a lot of people think that the warfare that happened previously in the first series is done with, but actually it seems it's very much not, and there's a lot going on with the politics of the different houses in this story and this universe. So I'm pretty intrigued to see what's going to happen next. I will say I think the first trilogy has more of a tighter, easier storyline. This one is getting a bit more complicated now, and I enjoy it still, but I don't feel like it's quite as fun as the first series yet, so I'm intrigued to see how he does with this book, because I think that he did get better with the previous books in the last series, so hopefully that will be the case with this one as well. But I'm definitely going to read it. I feel like these books are just super fun sci-fi YA adventures. They are quite dark and morbid, so borderline YA, but very fun, and I enjoy them. The next book I have is the 4th book in a series, and this is Age of Legend, which is part of the Legends of the First Empire series, and I love this series. This is Michael J. Sullivan's newest series. It's set in the same world that Hadrian and Royce have their story set, but this is set way, way back at the beginning of time when this world is just developing, and we follow lots of different races, namely the humans, the dwarves, and the sort of elvish culture, although they're not called that, and it's basically inspired by classic fantasy, but it's got a lot of kind of tropes that are flipped on its head, so it does fall into some traps of common, like, classic fantasy, but then the author, Michael J. Sullivan, does something so different and you're like, oh wow, okay. So I love this series. It's also one of the best series I've read in fantasy for female characters just being amazing. They are definitely taking centre stage in this book, and I really enjoy that element. So book number 3 and 2 and 1 were all fantastic, but this one is going to promise a lot more to come, especially in the warfare. There is an ongoing kind of tension that's been building with the dwarfish human culture versus the elven culture, who currently have all the power in the world, and I believe it's going to just continue to cause more and more dramatics as time goes on. There's also a character who is very much involved in kind of magic, but of the human variety, which is quite different to the elvish variety, and it's interesting to see her point of view and what's going on with her story as well. So there's a lot happening in this, and I really, really enjoy Michael J. Sullivan's writing. I think he does a great job every time he writes a book, so I'm definitely going to be picking this one up as well. Next up I have book 4 in a series, and this is Beneath the Twisted Trees by Bradley Beaulieu. I loved the first 2 in this series. I actually haven't read the 3rd one yet, but I definitely plan to soon, and I'm super keen to do that. Well, definitely before this one comes out, but maybe closer to the time of this one coming out so that I can like remember everything. But I really enjoyed this series. It started off with 12 kings, and it's set in a world where we have a main character who is kind of betrayed by the kings in some way quite early on, and she's trying to find out who they really are, because it's quite a mystery about who these kings are and what they do each day that isn't just tyranny. She's trying to take them down, but she ends up getting embroiled in quite a few different areas and plots as well, so it's very fascinating and I enjoy the concept. It's set in a sort of desert setting, which is quite unique to fantasy, and I enjoy immensely Bradley Beaulieu's writing, so I highly recommend this series. And again, of course, I'll be going back to it soon and reading this book and the one before it when this one comes out, so very excited for this. The next book I have is a sequel, and this is Jade Wall by Fonda Lee. I read Jade City in 2018 and really enjoyed it. It was such a fast-paced, military-inspired, I suppose, gang warfare-inspired book. It deals with the idea of Jade enhancing people's skills that they already possess to a superhuman level. So we have different families who are kind of like rival gangs in a neighborhood, and they are constantly trying to one-up one another. There's a lot of inspiration from gang warfare and gang culture in this book, but it's done in a very interesting way. So we follow characters from different areas of this world, and particularly quite a few characters from the same family who are all supposedly working towards the same aims. And the Jade kind of is a trade, like a currency that people buy into to try and have these superhuman powers that the families do. So there's a lot going on in this series, and I would class it kind of borderline YA adult. It is a darker series, but I think it reads very easily, and some of the characters are young adults in the book. So it's a bit borderline, but I really enjoyed it, and I think it's definitely a series that a lot of people would really enjoy. So I'm definitely keen to pick up the second one when that comes out. And again, I think the covers for these are just fantastically dramatic, which I love. So really highly rate the first one, and hopefully the second will continue in the same vein. And the final book I have to talk about in this video is The Ascent to Godhood, which is book number 4, or novella number 4 I should say, in the Tenseret series by Jia Yang. This book is the 4th one in a series that is one I've definitely enjoyed following. It's a series that each novella kind of takes its own turn in the same world, and they follow different events. We start off with a brother and sister, and we follow them, and then as it goes on, it gets a bit weirder, and you sort of explore the world and the problems in that world further. We have a person called the Protector who's supposed to protect the people, but of course there is more going on there than meets the eye. And by the point of this book, the land is kind of trying to come to grips with how to continue on and what they're going to do. And I believe at this point as well, we're also following a character called Lady Han who remembers the Protector, and we go back a little bit in time in some places to find out what it was really like when the Protector started, and how terribly downhill the journey went when the Protector was ruling, because I think when the Protector started they weren't really terrible, but then as time went on things got worse, and troops and training kind of took control of the Protector and what they were doing. So it sounds fascinating. I've enjoyed all of these so far, so I definitely think I'll enjoy this one. And that is everything I have for this video. I will be having another part, which is like the final part of these videos, to tell you guys what is coming up in up to December of 2019, but obviously some of those are a bit vague. Do let me know in the comments which of these books you're most interested in. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.